Welcome to British Focus, the channel where we dive into the stories shaping the world with a uniquely British perspective. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join our growing community of curious minds. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our latest insights. Well, this definitely wasn't something I expected to see on my 2025 bingo card. Yes, you heard that right. An Indian reporter was granted the rare opportunity to interview none other than the Dalai Lama. Naturally, you'd think the conversation might explore profound topics like spirituality, philosophy, or even global peace, areas where the Dalai Lama's wisdom truly shines. But instead, the reporter ventured into a much more divisive subject, immigration to the West. The question they posed was strikingly direct: should people from Afghanistan or Africa who wish to stay in Europe be allowed to do so? It's a bold and loaded question, especially given the complexities of immigration policies and the cultural debates surrounding them. Yet, the Dalai Lama's response was equally striking. He didn't sugarcoat his perspective, delivering an honest and unapologetic reality check that left both the reporter and audiences worldwide pondering the deeper implications of his words. In this video, we'll unpack this controversial interview, examine the nuances of the Dalai Lama's perspective, and explore the wider context of immigration in Europe today. Stick around, because this discussion is sure to challenge the way you see this complex and often polarizing issue.
From Afghanistan or the Middle East want to stay in Europe. Shouldn't they be allowed to?
Limited number, okay. But the whole Europe eventually become Muslim country, impossible. Or African country, also impossible.
There's nothing wrong with that, is there? I mean, you're a refugee yourself.
They themselves, I think, better to their own land, climatically. Much better. Europe too cold.
My parents moved from India to the UK. That's now their home. That's okay too, isn't it? If Indians or anyone else wants to live in Europe?
I think England, the small island, 90% become Indian. Then I don't know.
Your Holiness.
The Dalai Lama's comments during his recent interview have sparked a wave of reactions, from praise to controversy, and it's easy to see why. His response to the BBC reporter's direct questions about immigration to Europe wasn't just candid. It was a reality check that challenged the status quo and forced many to think deeply about the implications of migration. Now, let's break down what he said and explore the broader context behind his statements. Don't forget, as always, to share your thoughts in the comments because this is a conversation that needs to be had. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to British Focus for more engaging discussions. The Dalai Lama was asked whether people from Afghanistan or Africa who wish to stay in Europe should be allowed to do so. His response was surprisingly blunt: to a limited number, okay, but whole Europe eventually become a Muslim country? Impossible. Or African country also? Impossible. This statement immediately raised eyebrows, as it touched on the sensitive topic of demographic shifts and cultural identity. But he didn't stop there. When the reporter pointed out that he himself is a refugee, the Dalai Lama suggested that it's better for people to remain in their own lands, even citing climate as a factor. He also commented on the UK specifically, questioning the potential effects of mass migration on cultural balance, saying, if Indians or anyone else wants to live in Europe, I think England, the small island, 90% become Indian? Then I don't know. Let's unpack this, starting with the core of his argument. The Dalai Lama's view appears to rest on two key principles: preserving cultural identity and maintaining balance. His concern about Europe becoming a Muslim or African continent, while provocative, reflects a fear shared by many about the erosion of native cultures and traditions. This is not a new debate. Across Europe, questions about integration versus assimilation have been a recurring theme in discussions on immigration. What the Dalai Lama is essentially pointing out is the tension that arises when large-scale migration leads to demographic shifts that outpace cultural adaptation. But does that mean he's against immigration entirely? Not necessarily. His remark, to a limited number, okay, suggests he acknowledges the value of migration but emphasizes that it should happen within manageable boundaries. This idea aligns with many governments' policies that aim to balance humanitarian aid and the practical realities of infrastructure, resources, and societal cohesion. Yet, his follow-up comment about people being better off in their own lands adds another layer to his perspective. By highlighting climatic and cultural compatibility, he seems to advocate for addressing the root causes of migration, conflict, poverty, and environmental challenges, so people can thrive where they are rather than seeking a better life elsewhere. Now, his remarks about England being a small island and the hypothetical scenario of it becoming 90% Indian touch on a very specific anxiety about national identity. It's a pointed observation that echoes debates about the UK's capacity to absorb migrants without losing its own cultural fabric. Critics might argue that such comments risk promoting division, but others might see them as an invitation to consider the long-term impacts of immigration on both host nations and migrants themselves. What do you think? Is he right to highlight these concerns, or does it come across as overly conservative for someone with his global stature? Let's shift to the public reaction because it's been fascinating to see how people from all walks of life are engaging with this. Elon Musk, in his typically cryptic style, simply tweeted, "Interesting," when sharing the interview. That one word alone speaks volumes, as Musk often weighs in on topics that challenge societal norms. Another user was far less subtle, stating, "No, lady, it's not okay for Europe to turn into Africa or India or anything else. Bet you'd be quick to denounce it if it were the other way around, and rightfully so." This comment brings to light the double standards that sometimes emerge in these debates. Is it acceptable for one culture to dominate another? And if not, how do we draw the line without veering into exclusionary rhetoric? Other responses delved into the broader implications of unchecked migration. One person wrote, "Mass migration is fundamentally colonialism. Each country can only absorb so many people before you radically change it." It's a provocative statement, but it raises an important point about the limits of integration. At what point does immigration stop being a harmonious exchange of ideas and start becoming a threat to the existing social order? Another user added, "The Dalai Lama is a very wise man. He understands the eventual climax in conflict when balance is disrupted." This sentiment reflects a growing concern about what happens when cultural or economic imbalances lead to social unrest, something we've already seen play out in various parts of the world. Still, not everyone agrees with the Dalai Lama's perspective. Some have criticized his comments as being out of touch or overly simplistic. After all, isn't migration as old as humanity itself? And don't nations thrive when they embrace diversity? Supporters of immigration often point to the economic benefits and cultural enrichment that come with welcoming new communities. They argue that rather than fearing change, society should focus on creating inclusive frameworks that allow migrants to contribute meaningfully while respecting local traditions. What makes the Dalai Lama's comments particularly striking is the fact that they come from someone who has spent his life advocating for compassion and understanding. His perspective forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the limits of idealism when it comes to real-world challenges. It's easy to say we should welcome everyone with open arms, but as he points out, there are practical considerations that can't be ignored. So, where does this leave us? Are we, as nations and as individuals, ready to have honest conversations about the complexities of immigration? Or are we too entrenched in political correctness to address the potential consequences? These are not easy questions, and there are no easy answers. But one thing is clear, the Dalai Lama has succeeded in sparking a debate that goes beyond headlines and sound bites. It's a conversation about identity, sustainability, and the kind of future we want to build, for everyone. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is the Dalai Lama's perspective one of wisdom, or is it too cautious for today's interconnected world? As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to British Focus. In a shocking revelation, an investigation has uncovered a disturbing trend involving the sale of fake UK passports and driving licenses to illegal migrants. These fraudulent documents, being marketed by British-based firms, are allegedly being sold for as much as £5,000, offering migrants a deceptive pathway to bypass immigration laws and secure illegal residency or employment. This growing black market raises serious questions about the effectiveness of current measures to combat organised immigration crime in the UK. The National Crime Agency, NCA, has been alerted to this worrying development. One advertisement brazenly claimed to provide full driving licenses, along with theory and practical test certificates, all without requiring the individual to sit for exams. Another operation, reportedly based in Swinton, Greater Manchester, offered original guaranteed UK passports for the same price. These firms, operating under the radar, have exploited online platforms to peddle their services, making it alarmingly easy for individuals to obtain these fake documents. What makes this issue particularly concerning is the ease with which these forgeries can be used to infiltrate systems and evade detection. With most employers lacking the tools or expertise to identify high-quality fake documents, illegal migrants can seamlessly integrate into workplaces or apply for benefits. This exploitation not only undermines the integrity of immigration policies but also risks fueling a cycle of crime, as these counterfeit documents often serve as stepping stones for further fraudulent activities. A spokesperson from the NCA highlighted the gravity of the situation, stating, "False identity documents remain a key enabler of organized immigration crime. These counterfeit papers provide a facade of legitimacy that helps individuals bypass checks, making it harder for authorities to track their movements or hold them accountable." Moreover, this trend poses a significant challenge to the UK's border security, as it complicates efforts to differentiate between legitimate and fraudulent claims. Social media platforms have come under fire for enabling these criminal enterprises to advertise their services. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, as well as TikTok, have faced criticism for hosting these illicit ads. While both companies have since removed the offending advertisements and accounts, questions remain about how these posts were allowed to circulate in the first place. Critics argue that tech giants must do more to monitor and prevent the misuse of their platforms for illegal activities. This revelation has prompted a wave of political responses. Sir Alex Shelbrooke, a Conservative MP, suggested that harsher consequences might deter migrants from engaging with these illegal services. He remarked, "Perhaps if migrants saw on the same social media channels as these adverts that they would be immediately deported, they would think twice about parting with thousands of pounds." His comments reflect a growing frustration among some policymakers who believe that the current approach lacks the necessary deterrence to combat organized immigration crime effectively. Meanwhile, the debate around border security continues to intensify. Critics of the government's current measures argue that proposed legislation, such as social media blackouts or mobile phone bans for suspects, is insufficient to address the scale of the problem. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp criticized these measures as laughable, pointing out that they are unlikely to deter sophisticated smuggling gangs. On the other hand, some MPs, like Labour's Mike Tapp, have acknowledged progress in tackling these issues but emphasised that more needs to be done, calling for a more coordinated approach akin to MI5 strategies against terrorism. This investigation serves as a stark reminder of the challenges facing the UK's immigration and border security systems. It also underscores the need for stronger collaboration between authorities, technology platforms, and policymakers to address the root causes of this growing black market. The issue is not just about illegal migration. It's about maintaining trust in the systems that uphold the rule of law and ensuring that those who exploit vulnerabilities face the consequences. What are your thoughts on this? Should the government impose harsher penalties, or do we need an entirely new approach to tackle this growing threat? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to British Focus for more updates on stories that matter. The ongoing issue of illegal immigration and the use of fake documents has sparked significant political debate, with opinions divided on the effectiveness of current measures. While platforms like Meta and TikTok have taken action by removing advertisements for fake UK passports and driving licenses, the underlying problem persists. Conservative MP Sir Alex Shelbrooke weighed in on the matter, suggesting that stronger consequences could serve as a deterrent. He remarked, "Perhaps if migrants saw on the same social media channels as these adverts that they would be immediately deported, they would think twice about parting with thousands of pounds." His comments underline the frustration felt by many who believe that current policies fail to address the root of the issue effectively. The Conservative Party has been vocal in its criticism of measures proposed to crack down on organised immigration crime. These include travel bans and social media blackouts for suspects, which have been described by critics as inadequate and, in some cases, outright laughable. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp echoed this sentiment, stating, "The idea that dangerous people smuggling gangs are going to be deterred by the threat of some sort of mobile phone banning order is pretty laughable, frankly." This stark critique reflects a broader dissatisfaction with what many perceive as half-hearted attempts to tackle a complex and deeply entrenched issue. On the other hand, some argue that progress is being made, even if the steps are incremental. Provisional figures from the Home Office show that around 36,800 migrants arrived in the UK in 2024 by crossing the English Channel in small boats. While this marks an increase of 25% compared to 2023, it is still 20% lower than the record-breaking 45,774 arrivals in 2022. This decline could suggest that some measures are having an impact, but the rise from the previous year also indicates that much work remains to be done. These figures paint a complex picture, one that highlights the need for a more comprehensive and effective approach. The debate around immigration control is far from straightforward. On one side, there is a call for harsher penalties and stricter enforcement, with proponents arguing that deterrence is the only way to combat the growing influence of smuggling networks. On the other, critics emphasize the importance of addressing the systemic issues that drive migration, such as poverty, conflict, and lack of opportunities in the countries of origin. Both perspectives have merit, but the current political discourse seems to lack the nuance needed to bridge these opposing views. Moreover, the role of technology companies in enabling or preventing illegal activities has come under scrutiny. While platforms like Meta and TikTok have been quick to act by removing adverts and shutting down accounts, their initial presence raises questions about the algorithms and oversight processes that allowed such content to thrive in the first place. Are these companies doing enough to proactively prevent their platforms from being exploited by criminal networks, or is their response merely reactive? These are questions that must be addressed if technology is to play a meaningful role in tackling organized immigration crime. As we reflect on these developments, it's clear that immigration remains one of the most polarizing and complex issues of our time. The balancing act between compassion for those seeking a better life and the practical realities of border control is no easy task. What's certain is that simplistic solutions, whether through harsher penalties or social media blackouts, are unlikely to address the nuanced challenges at hand. Instead, a collaborative effort involving policymakers, law enforcement, tech companies, and international partners is essential to create a system that is both fair and effective. So, what are your thoughts on this issue? Should the government focus on stricter deterrence, or is a more systemic, global approach the way forward? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to British Focus for more insightful discussions on the stories that matter most. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.